Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for calling this hearing. I just want to say that I, like Mr. Connolly, am very delighted to see that my Republican colleagues have found their voices on the importance of getting arms to Ukraine, since I don't remember a single member on the Republican side of this committee saying one word when the prior president delayed delivery of armaments and ammunition to Ukraine to defend themselves because he couldn't extort a corrupt act in his political campaign. And I'm glad you found your voices, and that's gratifying. But I want to say thank you to the administration. No, I will not.
Mr. Chairman,
I will not.
That's not correct.
I will not.
President Trump provided
Mr. Wilson,
that.
I have the floor. I want to say thank you to the Biden administration for the work that you have done to demonstrate the importance of NATO and to re-engage with our NATO partners. We were living in a time not long ago when we had a president saying NATO was obsolete and doing everything he could to undermine this important defensive organization. So thank you to President Biden and to Deputy Secretary Sherman and your team. Finally, I want to say that we had the opportunity to be in Ukraine recently to meet with the defense minister, the foreign minister, the head of intelligence, and the president, and most of the discussion was about economic assistance. No one ever suggested that the United States was not doing everything it could to provide all of the support militarily that we could, and that is continuing. So the notion that we're not doing that is just incorrect. And thank you to everyone who's been part of that effort. Now let's focus on the question before this committee today in this hearing, and that is the AUMF. Deputy Secretary Sherman, Mr. Sherman asked you about whether or not the President or the administration believes it would need an authorization to engage militarily in the conflict in Ukraine. You said the President has no intention of sending troops. We understand that. Do I presume from that answer that you do agree that if he intended to engage directly with troops or military action, it would require authorization from Congress?
I think, as you all know, the President served as a senator in Congress for many years, and he understands the authorities that are very critical to the Congress and to the executive branch.
I take it you're not going to answer that question. Let me ask you then, you said before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that President Biden would ensure that outdated authorizations for the use of military force are replaced with narrow and specific frameworks back in August of last year. Would you describe what you consider narrow and specific replacements would be that the Biden administration would support?
Sure. As you noted, we've suggested a narrow and specific framework that will ensure that Americans are continually protected from terrorist attacks. We would be open to discussing with you all the contours of a new or updated AUMF. We believe it should provide uninterrupted authority, as I've said. In addition, in any updated or replacement AUMF, Congress should consider establishing mechanisms and standards that, one, address how it will apply to terrorist groups beyond those that may be identified by name in the text of an AUMF, and two, include periodic review of the groups that are subject to the use of force and the locations where force is to be used. We are further open to engaging with you on the issue of locations in which force can be used and how a periodic review process should be structured. These are very complex issues involving a lot of lawyers to get to the final answer. I'm not a lawyer, just to make sure everybody understands that. We think there should be periodic review of locations, periodic review of groups, and we are happy to discuss how that process might be structured.
And Deputy Secretary Sherman, would the Biden administration support sunset clauses in a replacement or revision of the 2001 AUMF?
We actually do not support an automatic sunset provision, including because we're concerned about the signal it would send to our adversaries. We think the periodic review will get to the concern that Congress has, that you are constantly engaged in updating lists, locations, and groups. But we do not want to say to our adversaries at some date, if they just hold out, they can do whatever they please. They cannot.
Thank you. You know, I think the fundamental question surrounding the 2001 AUMF is how we balance the needs of the executive branch and the commander-in-chief to keep us safe, while at the same time keeping intact the powers endowed to Congress to conduct oversight of the executive branch and to declare war. And so as we continue to go through this process, I invite your thoughts on how we balance those two priorities in a way that allows us to fulfill our responsibilities and also allows the President to fulfill his. And with that, I thank you again for being here, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and I want to apologize to the gentleman because I made a mistake. I know how humbled you are about Rhode Island. I said Maine, but the gentleman is from Rhode Island.
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
that I didn't even hear that. It would have been so deeply offensive to me. But I have a unanimous consent request. I'd ask unanimous consent that the report from the Watson Institute at Brown University, the 2001 authorization for the use of military force, a comprehensive look at where and how it has been used, be part of the record.
Without objection.